Let's do it. I gotta pee, but I'll do that later.
I'd like to hear some of the positive things about being a military brat.
Wow, dude, there's so many positive things about being a military brat. I feel like the way that I am now, which, at the end of this documentary that I'm making, I just want to express to you that if I could do, if I had to do everything over again to get to where I am today, I would gladly do it. Before I got sober, that would not have been the case. My life was miserable. But the lead up and the answer to your question is being a dependent of a military person, and myself as a child of a military person moving all over the place, you have to create connections. I became a people person, and it was so easy for me to make friends, communicate with people. I lived in foreign countries. Uh, it, it created the dynamicness that you see before you today. I think that being a military brat shaped me into being the person who I love today, and I'm so thankful for it. It's a very cool thing. I learned and experienced so much before the age of 12 that I feed off of every single day. I am more agile, more nimble, more outspoken, more eloquent, more just ready to do things. I don't get flustered as much. I'm prepared to go into the unknown. It's almost as if I was a soldier myself.
And what is the most negative thing about being a military brat?
I think consumption. I think I didn't have a relationship with my father, which I feel like was something very similar. Like, I was scared of my dad as a kid. He was a tough military person, and our house was run like we were little military people. My dad wanted us to be born 18 years old at least. He wanted us to be 21 years old, but we popped out as babies. So he couldn't relate to us. He wanted us to go to the bar with him, but there are 21 years between birth and that age that you have to nurture and be around for your child, and my dad was not. So that's the hard part about the military is I don't think there are a lot of great fathers in the military. There are some, but I don't think there's a lot.
When you moved each time, you were leaving these friends that you had just became great friends with. How did you deal with that every time?
We knew that we were going to move in 4 years. So we instantly had to go into friend making, and we all were on the same page. It was a great equalizer being in the military. We lived in the similar types of houses. We went to the same school. Our parents did a similar job. It was just, we weren't different. We wore the same kind of clothes. We had the same kind of socioeconomic background. So there was a great equalizer in the military. So we could just be friends. We didn't have to be judgy. We didn't have to be concerned that you had more than me. We all were the same. So it was wonderful. And we knew in 4 years we were going to move. So we had 4 years of time to just live it up, be friends, and then move on. So it was fine. There was not a problem to us.
And then what did you do to reduce the stress?
Well, I was only 0 to 12, so there wasn't any coping mechanisms that related to alcohol for reducing stress. I don't feel that I was stressed out as a kid. However, that might be a lot of like blocked emotion in there. I I hung out with my friends. I played imaginary stuff. We built forts. We were kids. But I didn't have the best home life with my father, but I had the most amazing mother.
You said he wanted you to go to the bar with him. Do you mean literally, or did you find your own bar because you knew he wanted you to go to the bar and you couldn't go to that one?
No, I don't mean it literally because that would be totally illegal. I just mean my dad, when we were born, didn't know how to relate to us. He was not prepared to be a father. I don't think he wanted to be a father. He became a father accidentally, in the sense that none of us were necessarily planned. When my mother and father were pregnant with my sister, that was what kept them together. That was the glue. Before they had not such a good relationship, they didn't necessarily want to be with one another. But when my mom became pregnant, they were going to put my sister up for adoption. When my sister was born, that's when my mother realized whether my father stays or not, my mom's not putting my sister up for adoption. She's going to stay. And my dad was probably like, well, shit, I can't be that kind of a guy that just abandons my pregnant wife, so I'll just stay. But that didn't mean that he wanted to be a father, was prepared to be a father, or knew how to do it, or was interested in learning how. I think he resented the fact that we took away his playtime, his extra financial, money. We were a burden to him, and we felt it. That's what I'm saying. He didn't really take us to a bar, but he would have rather us be born at an age where we could be his buddies.
And why were they going to put the next child up for
My
adoption?
sister was going to be put up for adoption because my parents didn't have a good relationship. They weren't married, and I don't think that they were. It wasn't a smart decision for them necessarily, but their background being, a little bit religious, and that she needed to, you know, it just was the thing that they decided to do. So when they opted not to put my sister up for adoption, it kept my mother and father together, and then I'm the middle child, so I came next 2 years later.
And when did the drinking start?
High school. Yeah, high school. It didn't necessarily start early, and it didn't necessarily get out of control right away. But I moved from Germany after 12 years of living in England, then Spokane, Washington, then Alabama, and then two tours, a total of 8 years in Germany, from 1984 when I was born until 1996 when we left Europe. I never, there was no drinking there. When I moved to Washington, it was originally to be a way station while we went from Germany to North Carolina. But my father sent us to Washington to stay with the grandparents, to Seattle to stay with the grandparents for the summer while he put everything together and then shipped it to the East Coast. But instead, what he did was he shipped our stuff to Seattle and then ran away to Montana with my mom's best friend and dipped out on the military. So that is the reason why we ended up being in Washington and Seattle area anyhow. So I was in the sixth grade. It was 1996, and I started middle school. My mom had planned for us to just stay that summer in Seattle, and then all of a sudden our lives had completely changed. She was now going to get a divorce. She had moved with her three children in with her parents, and she had been focusing on her family up until that point in time. She had opted not to go to college once they got pregnant and married, and she was a service member's spouse. So she put off all of her things to become a mother. So, and in that short period of time after the military service and my dad dipped out and went to Montana, she had to really pivot. She humbled herself, moved in with the grandparents, became a house cleaner, and started going to night school at the University of Washington. While I was in the sixth grade, my little brother was in the second grade, and my oldest sister was a freshman in high school. And for the first 3 years of middle school, it's not that anything was going wrong, it's that it was just seeding that American value system of, consumption and, things that I wasn't used to. We're no longer in the structured environment of the military. Everyone was very different. Some people's parents had big houses, some people's parents had little houses, some people's parents had, very, money bringing in jobs, and some people's parents were poor. And we became very different. We went from a lifestyle that was equal to everybody else's to being this disjointed, now having to like fit in where we didn't have to fit in before. It was just everybody fit in. So now I'm starting to have to, work on this popularity thing and this socialization thing and this like doing things and stuff to make friends and to be cool, which wasn't so hard for me. But needless to say, I didn't really start drinking until about high school. We were underage, shoulder tapping, things of this nature. And it's that American consumptionism where it's like when you're underage and drinking, you binge drink because you don't know when you're going to get your next bit. You get a bunch of it, you party with your friends, and so you're not consuming responsibly. Nobody's teaching you about responsible consumption. It's just that American, like, you can't do it until you're 21, so we're not going to tell you anything about it. It's just no until 21. But you do it. So I started drinking probably my sophomore year in high school, which means I was like 16, 17 years old.
So, how did drinking affect you that didn't affect your friends?
All of these things affected my friends. I have so many examples of people who are sober now, people who have gotten DUIs or been incarcerated, people who have died. I have a myriad of examples. However, my mom told me this once, and it sticks with me to this day. There are people that make mistakes, there are people that break the rules, there are people that try to skirt the law, and they don't get caught all the time. There are people that get away with everything. She said, "You're not that type of person. Anytime you make a mistake, you get caught, and you need to be smart about it." But I resented that. I didn't believe it, and so I didn't change.
Tell us some of the biggest mistakes you made.
driving intoxicated. I grew up in a very, I grew up in an enclave of Seattle in a town called Renton, and there were, there wasn't a police department in our particular area. It was pretty rural. So drinking and driving, especially at my age and amongst my friends, it wasn't an uncommon occurrence. So it didn't strike me as super bad. I knew that it was wrong and illegal, but we got away with it all the time. So I just from a younger age would drive my friends home. I was the designated drunk driver often, the triple D. And that is a terrible thing, but there were no repercussions until, I was 21 years old. So from 17 until 21, I was getting away with this stuff all the time. I didn't have any examples of it being, you know, there was no intervention in between, and I knew that was going to happen. So there was no intervention in between 17 and 21 to make me, avoid it. So I drove drunk often.
And what were the worst repercussions for you?
At 21 years old, when I was a sophomore in college, on a winter break, I came back from Bellingham, which is north of Seattle, about 20 miles south of the Canadian border, where I was going to Western Washington University. And I was partying with my high school friends, and we were in Seattle. And when you drink and drive in a rural area with very limited stoplights and less police activity, you run into bad situations infrequently. But then when you go to the big city, there's more lights, there's more cameras, there's more cops, there's more ways to get caught. And so I took this, not getting caught and then all of a sudden hanging out in the big city. I just took that same mentality with me. We were out drinking, and I drove from, where we had finished to where we were going to spend the night at my friend's house. And I crossed the center divide going around Lake Union, and I hit head on another car. And that's where the biggest mistake, the thing that changed my entire life, happened in 2005 when I got a vehicular assault charge and became a felon.
And take us through that period of time, the moment that you crossed the line and hit a car oncoming, if you can.
Unfortunately, I knocked myself unconscious. I had one passenger, and there were two people in the oncoming car. I don't remember it whatsoever, but what I do remember is waking up at Harborview Hospital in Seattle, chained to a gurney in the hallway of a hotel. I remember waking up chained to a gurney in the hallway of this hospital. In whatever they put you in when you're they had probably cut my clothing off in an ambulance. I don't remember any of this. I had knocked my front tooth out, and I woke up from unconsciousness in the scariest place of my life. And then I passed out again. And then I woke up later. The next time I remember, I woke up chained again to this hospital gurney in a hospital room with my mother standing over me.
Why were you chained?
Because I had just struck an oncoming vehicle, and that was vehicular assault. I was now facing a felony charge, and that's what they do to criminals.
So the police handcuffed you to the bed
Yes.
and left you there?
Well, I was chained to the bed. I think this is not necessarily a point. That's a moot point. I was chained to the hospital bed. That's just police protocol. I was now a felon. I was fighting a felony charge. That moment changed the entirety of the rest of my life, 2005.
In what way?
In every way. I was now ineligible I was going to college at the time, and now I'm a felon. So on paper, it doesn't matter what I've done up until that point in time. You do a background check on me, felon. It changes my prospects for employment. It changes my prospects for what I can do with the rest of my life. That type of felony sticks with you. I now had to get a lawyer. I had to fight these charges, which cost me thousands of dollars, to which I did not have. Like I had said earlier, I didn't come from a family of means. I started my very first job at the age of 14, and I worked for everything in my entire life. And now I had put myself into a position that destroyed it all. I was halfway through university, and I didn't know what to do. So in that moment, I knew that my life was changed. but I wouldn't really realize how changed it was until later on.
Did you have to go to court?
So many times I had to go to court. I had to go to court in Seattle from Bellingham, which is an 80-mile distance. I had to schedule all these court appointments to fit on weekends or whatever. So I was now consumed by court, lawyers, felony charges, everything. Plus, I had injured 2 people, 3 people, and then 4, including myself. I had a passenger and there were 2 other people, innocent bystanders, that my mistake, my stupidity, came into their lives and affected them negatively. And for that, I will always have to deal with that.
What were their injuries and yours?
I don't remember.
Nobody got hurt super bad.
No one got hurt super bad. I was knocked unconscious. I lost a tooth. The passenger, my friend and my best friend at the time, had lacerations on his stomach. I believe he had to have, several inches or a foot of an intestine removed. The fact is that I negatively impacted other people because of my bad decisions, and I have had to deal with that for a long time. And I have gone through the process, and especially in my sobriety, given myself the opportunity to be apologetic, forgive, and move on. The best thing that I can do is to be a wonderful person, to be a contributor to positivity, and that is how I repay. And I have forgiven myself, and it has been years since that has happened, but in 2005, I really altered the trajectory of my entire life.
Was that the low point?
Well, that was one of many low points. We have so many. We talk about rock bottoms when it comes to alcoholics. And, from an outside perspective, you might see someone like me make a poor decision and come to, that sort of an end road, and you'd say that's their rock bottom. But no, at that point in time, I didn't associate alcoholism with it. I made a mistake and I was starting to pay for it, but I didn't stop drinking. If at any point in time I stopped drinking, it was because I had to go to rehabilitation, because I had to go to AA meetings. And so under duress, I had to follow these court-ordered protocols. Plus, I had to go to jail. I spent 6 months incarcerated for that activity, which I did over the course of a summer in college. So while kids were going on vacation to Mexico or having these, wonderful things, well, what'd you do over the summer? I went to jail. So my life was forever changed in 2005. And no, that wasn't my rock bottom. There's many more after that.
Would you like to share some of it?
Yeah, so 2005, I got a felony vehicular assault. 5 years later, I got another DUI, same passenger. So I didn't change the things that were negative in my life. The people that I was hanging around with, I didn't associate them with my bad behavior. I didn't associate anything. It was just bad luck. Just bad luck. I just kept going. So I got another DUI in 2010. And, maybe almost another DUI. Almost another DUI in 2013 or something like that. So many. I went to jail a second time in 2011 after I got a DUI, which turned my felony vehicular assault charge. It turned a regular DUI into a felony DUI, so I was facing a second felony, which, is a huge game changer. It was a disaster. My life was a disaster.
So you knew you had to quit, but you couldn't.
I didn't know that I had to quit. I never associated the drinking with the problems. I had this messed up disconnect. I was just unlucky. So I never associated that because I just wanted to have fun. I didn't associate those things because that would mean I'd have to make a change, and I was having too much fun, and I was just hitting some road bumps. But it really started to affect me years into it. My sobriety happened in 2017. So we're talking about a very first vehicular assault in 2005. And then you have all of that time until 2017. So I was screwing around, being ignorant to the fact that I had a lot of change to make in my life for many years.
And what is the ultimate thing that happened in your life where you said, hey, I've got to change now?
I was told that I was a lost cause, that I couldn't get sober, that there was nothing no one could help me, that I was going to die. And that motivated me. That criticism of me and my integrity, for some reason, snapped a light bulb in me that created the change that you see now. That evolution took a really long time. It's 2023 now. I stopped drinking in 2017. So we're talking, 6.5 years at the point of this recording that I've been sober. But it was just that you can't do it.
Who said that?
An ex-girlfriend of mine, a girlfriend at the time, had told me that I was a lost cause, that I couldn't do it, and that I was basically like, a, that I couldn't do it.
So you were bound to show her she was wrong. What was the first thing you did?
I stopped drinking. I don't know how it happened. I don't know the divine intervention, the cosmic revelation, the grasp, the words for some reason stuck with me that I said, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to do it and I'm going to show you and I'm going to leave you and I'm just going to change my entire life and I'm going to prove to you in your face that I can do this. Most people who have had as much consumption as me, who have done this much negative impact to their bodies, they don't quit cold turkey. They go to rehab, they get in some sort of a program. But for me, I had been force-fed all of this rehab. I'd been to rehab several times. I had been court-ordered this and court-ordered that. And so the resentment, I don't like being told what to do. I don't like being told what to do. I like to be in charge. And as messed up as that sounds, none of those rock bottoms that I hit, whether it was the motorcycle accident after being a Little League baseball coach and drinking vodka and Gatorade while being a coach and missing my exit and falling over and having a bystander hold me to the side of the road onto the ground and call in the police and me being chained once again to a gurney, that didn't stop me. The DUI on top of the felony DUI, that didn't stop me. And being told that I had to, or going to these rehabs, I just showed up for, here I am, I'm get my slip signed, do the things that you need to do until I'm out of confinement, then I can go back to the regular scheduling program. It was when someone told me that I couldn't do it on my own, that I couldn't just do it. That's when I did it. And I just cold turkey, I quit. I set it down and I never did it again. And it was the worst feeling ever. My DTs were terrible. My sweats were terrible. My shakes, my brain was in a fog for, years. But every day after my first decision to get better, it got better. And I'm so thankful that I did that. And I'm so thankful for that person telling me that I couldn't do it. And I'm so thankful for all of the mistakes that I made. And I'm so thankful for all of the money that I blew on all of the mistakes that I made, because it really impacted me at my core. It wasn't easy for me. I didn't have like a say something dumb to somebody and be like, oh, I need to check myself on this drinking. I fell from the alcohol tree and hit every branch on the way down. Anything. I made all the mistakes that anyone could make.
So when you went to the meetings and the programs that
Were prescribed to me.
were prescribed, yeah, the lawyer said you got to do this, and so you went, but you weren't 100% into it. You were just there to get your slip signed. What changed in you besides the fact that your girlfriend pretty much told you you were a loser and you weren't going to be able to do it? That something else, that when you said, I'm not going to have that beer or vodka, Gatorade that I want to have right now. Why?
Vanity. I've always, and this is not in a vapid way, or maybe it is, because whatever saved me is important to me, and I don't care what it is. My sobriety is the most important thing in my life. And the thing that clicked for me was I started to get uglier, fatter, stupider. I started to lose friends. I was getting fired from jobs. All my relationships were failing. I was growing distant from my family. Everything in my life that I valued was falling apart. When I got out of the shower and I looked at myself in the mirror at my worst, I was bloated. I was cranky. I was red. I was puffy. I was ugly to me. But also inside of me, I was starting to just be someone I didn't even want to hang out with anymore. And when it got to that point, and I'm like, it's got to stop, man. I got to get back. I got to get my looks back. I got to get back into shape. I got to rebuild these friendships. There are so many people in your life that alcohol affects. It's not just you. Everybody that cared about me was suffering almost as deeply as I was. And there was nothing that they could do about it. The only person that had the power to make the change was me. And when I finally realized that, and it was a vanity moment, I finally realized it's all connected. The way that I look in the mirror that I'm not happy with is connected to me being a shitty worker, me being a terrible partner, me being a bad brother, cousin, nephew, all of those things. And I had moved after culinary school. I went to culinary school. When my After I graduated from college and I was a felon, I didn't have any prospects. I would go to job after job after job interview, and I would get rejected for one simple reason: my background. And there was nothing that I could do about that stain on my record anymore. I had to make a huge pivot. And after I graduated from university, I spent several years being really sorry for myself. Still drinking, still being sad for myself. I was living with my grandfather, and I was just being a piece of shit. Literally. And I wasn't doing anything about getting better. I was just getting worse. And I was feeling sorry for myself, and I was accepting less. And I finally was like, I gotta make a change. What can I do that doesn't require, who's not gonna look at my record? And I thought, I love food. I grew up on a farm. I've been raising animals and gardening and raised by a bunch of people that are tremendous cooks, and food is a huge part of my life. I'll go to culinary school. So I went to culinary school, and I started in 2011. And in 2011, I also was sentenced to a 3-month sentence in a work release program in jail, which means you have a jail sentence, but you can go out to work or school during the day. So I figured it out. I would go to culinary school at Seattle Central Community College, at Seattle Culinary Academy, and I could go to jail, and I could get out and take a bus up to Capitol Hill, and I'd go to culinary school. And there's a 2-year program. And I said, you could be a chef anywhere, right? Like, I can completely change my life. So I went to culinary school, and the first couple months while I was there, I was incarcerated, so I had to be sober. So, I towed the line, I did what they said to do, I did all the things, and I met all the expectations. But culinary school is not a place, and the restaurant industry is not a place for sober or people trying to get sober. I didn't know that. It is full of vice. It is full of people who are runaways and vagabonds and artists and, creative people who have a lot of struggles. That creative juice comes from a core of pain. And that's why you see so many creative actors and comedians and, chefs and those types of people who die at young ages. And a lot of them are linked to drugs and alcohol. But I didn't know this. I just thought, I'll be a chef. I can go anywhere. So 2 years after I graduate, I met someone in culinary school. She was moving down to California. And I said, okay, my problems are here in Seattle. If I move to Oakland, my problems will stay in Seattle, right? So I packed up the U-Haul and the Subaru. I told my family I was moving to California. And they were terrified for me because they knew that I had problems with alcohol. They knew that me being further away wasn't going to be helpful. They knew that my support system was going to be further away. But I thought, I'll just leave it there. Start a new life. But that fucking alcoholism jumped in the back of that U-Haul and came right down with me. And I got a job in the restaurant industry in Oakland, California in 2012. And that just exploded the burn. I was now working full-time in an industry that bases its ability to sell great food on selling liquor. You work nights, weekends, evenings. All your friends are cooks, and they keep funneling in 18-year-olds. So my behavior, my bad behavior, didn't look so bad anymore. The amount that I drank didn't look so bad because there were lots of similar people around me. But eventually, my addiction just started to skyrocket, and it really started to take me down. And there was from 2012 until 2017, those were the worst times. Not legally speaking, physically, mentally, emotionally, I was just rocket shipping down to the bottom, which is where I would find my sobriety. But it took years and more DUIs and firing from jobs and just bad relationships and just doing the wrong thing. I was headed in the wrong direction, blinded by alcohol, and I was out of control. Alcohol to me took my ability to make decisions away. I wasn't in control anymore, and I couldn't control it.
So tell us how you finally became able to control it.
It was those words, "You can't do it," that encouraged me to get sober. I had been broken up with the person that I moved down to California with because I drank too much. I had moved back in with some friends in Oakland who I had, needed a place to stay. They encouraged me to stay with them. They were worried for me. There was nothing that they could do, and I was overstaying my welcome. I had made more relationships fizzle, and I had attached myself to somebody who was in a terrible place in her life as well, and she just wanted somebody to take care of, and I was that perfect candidate for it. But eventually, after 5 years of being in a relationship with someone with children, I was realizing that I'm a bad role model. I'm being a shitty person. And I was so consumed by it at that point in time, like my body craved alcohol. I was drinking every day. At work, on the weekends, every day I was drinking until I had screwed that up so much that I got kicked out of that house. And I was like couch surfing for months and just drinking and going to work. And then eventually I was just fired from the only job that I had left. And I begged my way back into staying at my ex's place. And then eventually she's like, "You're fucked, dude. You can't get better. You're going to die. You're a lost cause." That's what changed it. I wanted to live. I've always wanted to live to be 100 years old. And you certainly can't live to be 100 if you die at 32. And so in 2017, shortly after Donald Trump was elected president, and I thought, fuck, the world is fucked. I got to be sober for this shit. That's when it happened. I was like, I got to be sober for this. I need to live. 32 isn't close enough to 100. I got to stop. Alcohol is literally ruining my life. And if I can stop drinking alcohol, I can live.
If somebody saw this and they were in the similar spot where you were at that time, can you give us a little roadmap on how they could get out and be as successful as you become today?
Every alcoholic's journey is different, and every alcoholic has struggles that are different. What I can say is never give up. What I can say is that you're worth it. Ultimately, living is so important. There's so many things that I can do in my life to affect other people in a positive way. I spent so many years negatively affecting those around me, negatively impacting myself, negatively impacting everything. It's now my responsibility to positively impact the world, to be an example of sobriety, to be an example of overcoming this massive obstacle. The only thing that I really can say is that you're worth it. You are so worth saving. It doesn't matter what you've done. it doesn't matter how bad it got. It only matters that you start, because I can tell you this. Day one was very hard of sobriety. Day two, very hard, but easier than day one. And then day three, a little bit better. And then each day that I built up in my sobriety, I could look back and I could say, I'm doing it. I had that little voice in the back of my head saying, you can't do it. And I was showing proof that I am doing it. Fuck you. I'm doing it now. I'm going to do it tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day, and watch me. So for me, I guess it was shoving it in somebody's face that I can do it. The crash that happened in my life happened for a huge reason. I have become amazing. I mean, that's all I can say. And I don't care if it's braggadocious. I don't care if it's conceited or vapid or whatever. What I care about is that it's sober. Being sober is so important. And living the full extent of your life is so important, because you never know who's watching. So get sober if you need to. There are people in the world that can drink. There are normal people in the world. You can go out, have a drink, socialize, and just have one or two or whatever. I'm not a normal person. And that's okay. That's the amazing part about me. But I had to realize that it's not about being fair. It's not about being right. It's not about being anything other than the best version of you that's possible. You can do it.
Tell us about some of the things, like maybe the jobs that you've had recently that have helped you, or maybe the places that you've gone, or the people that you've met since your sobriety that have helped you along the way.
Ever since I got sober, only positive things have happened to me. The alcoholism and the veil the shadow that it cast on me kept me away from the abundance that was awaiting for me. It was the one thing keeping me from being me. When I got sober, I realized the relationships that I was in. When I got sober, I realized the relationships that I was in were the wrong relationships. When I got sober, the work that I was doing, I realized it wasn't the work that I was meant to be doing. So when I didn't have alcohol telling me what to do and who I was supposed to be and what I could accomplish, I was able to just do all the things that I was meant to be the person I was meant to become. I started being able to surround myself with people that encouraged me. I started to be able to have jobs that were meant for me. Before I was taking, I was stealing. I was living someone else's life. I was living a life that I wasn't meant to live, but I didn't know it. I was held captive by alcohol in a way that I didn't understand until I was released from that captivity. And then I could look back and I'd be like, damn, I've been going about this all wrong. So I was able to, realize in the end that I wasn't only dating the wrong people, I wasn't even dating in the right arena. I realized that in my sobriety that I was gay. I realized that the career that I had thought I was supposed to do, it wasn't for me. I learned a ton from being a chef, and I still do chef work as a hobby. That's my artistic expression, one of them. But I no longer had to punch a clock and show up and do the same thing every single day. It wasn't for me. So I changed my career. I changed who I was dating. I changed my friend groups. And I realized that there were a couple people left in my life that really were my friends, that always stuck with me. I doubled down on my energy with them. I reintegrated my family back into my life, which never left my side. You want to find out who loves you? Make a shit ton of mistakes and see who sticks around. Because those people want to see you successful. They know what's deep inside of you, and they're going to be there for you, but they hold boundaries. They say to you, hey man, what you're doing isn't working for you. We see it. It's driving us crazy. You're hurting everybody around you. We love you so much. And if you don't stop what you're doing, we're going to leave you too.
Probably one of the most profound things that you just said was that there was a time when you were fishing in the wrong pond. Would you like to share your transition from uh, one to the other now?
Sure. So, I've always just wanted to be in love. I have gay members of my family. The restaurant industry is a very queer, positive environment. So I never shied away from gay, straight, bisexual. None of those things ever bothered me. I just wanted to be in love. But to be honest with you, I didn't know what I didn't know. And what I didn't know was who was the right partner for me. For the longest time when I was an alcoholic, I was living somebody else's life. And that's the best that I can say. In 2019, my relationship with my most recent partner, who had told me that I couldn't do it, was definitely coming to an end. And it was so hard for me because for 5 years, I was dating someone with kids. So I wasn't only disappointing myself, I wasn't only disappointing my partner, but also there were two small children under the age of 6 years old who were in this relationship as well. So that drug it out for a really long time. And in 2019, after several years of trying to make this relationship work, but still just being a full blown, reckless alcoholic, I didn't know what to do. I tried to do, I'd gotten sober in 2017, so there had been 2 years of sobriety that I had been in this relationship with kids and with this partner, and it still wasn't working. I had moved out of her home and gotten a place of my own to just try to restabilize my life, and I was trying to be this weekend warrior dad, stepdad, and that wasn't working. And all of a sudden, 2020 happened, and the pandemic hit, and we were isolated completely. The pandemic saved my life. It isolated me from everything, and I only dealt with me. The only thing that I had was my job and myself. And so I started to talk to myself and listen to myself and take day trips with myself and love myself and forgive myself and congratulate myself. All of the things that I really needed to just, move on. I had made a really big change in my life. Um, and it was really hard, but I was so used to a hard life that I just trudged. And eventually I just spent enough time with myself, accepting, loving, caring, being compassionate, and understanding of my own self. And I was just so excited. And then 6 months into this, love yourself phase, I started to get lonely. The world was closed, no one was getting together, families were separated. And I was lonely and I wanted to have a partner. And I said, okay, well, I'll just go out and I'll find another partner. And in that moment, I thought to myself, okay, well, this relationship ended negatively. This relationship ended negatively. And was it because I was a shitty person that all these relationships ended? No. So the only other reason to me could be that I was just dating the wrong people. And for me, because I wasn't concerned about anything other than being in love, I said, let me give this a shot. Let me try to see if dating a man would be more my speed, would be something that would be bountiful for me. What do I have to lose? I've already made so many positive changes in my life. Everything is going well. This can just be the boost that I need. So I took a day off of work on July the 15th of 2020. It was COVID. I went online and in one day, in a period of 3 hours, I found the partner that I've been dating now for 3 years. And he has been encouraging, gracious, understanding. We come from very similar backgrounds in dating the wrong people. We come from very similar upbringings of alcohol and excess and this traditional American upbringing. And, I said, I don't know what's going to happen with this. I don't know how to do this. I've never done this before. But each day that we hung out, it was better and better. And I felt heard and understood and nurtured. I felt that what I was giving and what he was giving, we were actually growing from. And before it was just flash in the pan